Inflation has been with us for thousands of years. We are now in an inflationary crisis, and social collapse is just around the corner. We all know that when we spend more than we earn, we get into all kinds of trouble. Dickens explained this very simply in David Copperfield. If you get just a bit more in wages than it costs to live, then you are happy. But if you get a bit less than you earn, then you start down the road to poverty. This rule applies to people, communities, businesses, provinces, and nations. When things like oranges are in short supply, we get into a bidding war. It is a war which is always won by the rich. For luxury goods, this does not matter too much, but for basic survival stuff like food and energy, it is unacceptable. The bidding war raises prices so high that only the rich can afford the stuff in the supermarkets. This is called price gouging and profiteering. It increases prices to take advantage of the shortages and crushes the life out of the average citizen. The government can stop this by legislation. People complain that prices are going up, but that is the same as having the purchasing power of money going down. And that happens when governments print money, as they are doing right now. A decrease in the value of money equals an increase in the price of goods. They are the same thing. The Roman currency, the denarius, started off as a pure silver coin. But the emperors needed more money, so they took the silver from this coin and used it to make 2 coins with only half the silver in them. And they continued this process until the denarius was worthless. And then the most powerful empire of the ancient world collapsed. This is the Roman money-making machine. Into it go 5 silver denarius, and out of it comes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 coins with half the silver, so they have almost doubled their money. So let's fast forward 2,000 years. This is the Canadian money-making machine. In goes toilet paper, and out comes plastic currency, billions of dollars worth. Hyperinflation caused the collapse of the Roman Empire. Quantitative easing is the new name for hyperinflation, and it will cause our collapse too. Everyone should join the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. They are the only group fighting for the wise use of your tax dollars. This is what they have to say. Anyone not living under a rock knows the Bank of Canada failed to do its job. It drove inflation by printing more than $300 billion out of thin air during the pandemic. The more dollars the Bank of Canada prints, the less your dollars in your bank account can buy. Central bankers are giving themselves bonuses while the price you pay for groceries and gas keeps going up. The Bank of Canada gave its employees $45 million in bonuses and pay raises during the pandemic. So please support the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. There is a very long history about the terrible impact of inflation on society. A prime example is what happened in Germany at the end of the First World War. Weimar Germany, after World War I, went through one of the worst hyperinflations in history, unleashing untold horrors on the German people and their economy. This set the stage for the rise of Hitler and the Nazi regime. It seems that modern politicians have no idea about this history and what it tells us. And what were some of those horrors? Many are given in a book called When Money Dies by Adam Ferguson. Then the chickens of unlimited deficit financing, exactly as we have today, swarmed into roost. Mounted police were torn from their horses, which were slaughtered in the Ringstrasse, and the warm, bleeding flesh dragged away by the crowd. Because of malnutrition, all children were 2 years physically and mentally backward for their age. There were many other effects of inflation in the Weimar Republic in the early 1920s. On November the 20th, 1923, the exchange rate fell to 4200,000,000,000 German marks to the dollar, which meant that the German mark was completely worthless. The banknote printers went on strike. There were 2,000 banknote printing presses which were working 24 hours a day to print worthless money. Of course, the businessmen and industrialists made large profits. They always do when there's any kind of a disaster. And since the currency, the German mark, was useless, there was a flight from currency to stuff, to diamonds, to property, to copper pipes, pianos, stuff, any stuff, other than the German mark. The same thing happened in Rome in 100 AD, when the denarius became worthless and the rich Romans bought vineyards and olive presses and property to get their useless denarius into something real. France and Belgium invaded Germany. Few people know that, but Germany had inflicted grave damage on France and Belgium, and France and Belgium wanted reparation after the war for that damage. So they invaded the Ruhr and they took over control of several German ports. There were food riots. People were hoarding stuff. Gasoline was siphoned from cars, as it is today in Canada. The middle classes and pensioners saw their savings completely wiped out. The officials responsible for the inflationary policies were called conspirators. They were charged as criminals. And when our government in Canada misleads us, as it usually does, then they also should be held responsible for their bad decisions. Only history teaches wisdom. And since our politicians and the general public know nothing about the history of inflation, pandemics, droughts, or anything else, we find that wise decisions are seldom made. And one thing that has been true for 2,000 years is that increased prices, chased by demands for higher wages, is a death spiral that destroys economies, nations, and empires. We are in that spiral now. So, what does the government say? There is only one way to stop inflation: raise interest rates. This is so terribly wrong, economically and socially. Only the experts group of elite friends profit from raising the interest rates. So this action must be deliberate, and they know the chaos that it will create. This is not quantum mechanics. It is common sense. Businesses borrow money. Farmers for seed and fertilizer before their crop is sold. Corner store owners to stock their shelves. Entrepreneurs to start a business. When interest rates go up, so must the price of all products. Otherwise, businesses go bankrupt. When governments raise interest rates, they cause inflation. 2,000 years of history tells us that inflation increases by the same amount as the interest rate hike, or more. Economic activity stagnates. Entrepreneurs are financially strangled. Investment income by the rich increases. The middle class lose their savings, and the poor cannot afford the basic essentials. Unions fight for cost of living increases. Government employees get automatic raises. Nations and societies collapse. Civil unrest, riots, and revolutions are common. The devalued currency is scrapped, and we saw that after the Second World War with the new franc in France and other devalued currencies in Europe. A new leader emerges, and then we start all over again. So, how do we beat inflation? Well, at the personal level, I suggest you get a job with the government. But the truth is, we are all in the same lifeboat, trying to survive an inflationary disaster which will engulf the world. There are no first-class passengers in a lifeboat, because having worthless money is no help in a revolution. Let me tell you what I think is about to happen. These are not my ideas. They happened in previous inflationary periods, and we seem to be going down the same path. Service providers, hairdressers, chiropractors, restaurant staff, corner stores, lawyers, auto shops, duct cleaners, and masses of other places will go out of business. There will be a huge loss of jobs. People will go into debt to pay for food, shelter, and energy. Credit card debt has already increased by 25%. There is no way that these people can pay off their debt or even their interest. The government, of course, will hire many highly paid experts to solve the problems of inflation and social collapse. And all they need is common sense. Tent cities will appear everywhere. We already have some in our major cities. Life and education, insurance policies will lose most of their value. Retirement savings and investments will vaporize. Food prices will rise until only the rich can afford real food. In supermarkets, the shelves with cheap food will be empty. Children will become malnourished, as we already see today in large parts of the world. Their physical and mental health is stunted, with long-term consequences for society. Government employees will get automatic increases to cover the rise in inflation. Everyone else will have to fight for an increase. Unions will go on strike. Then strikes will be banned and chaos will result. The country will go into a massive depression. Poverty will stalk the land. Drug addiction and suicides will increase dramatically. Family life will disintegrate. Crimes will increase. The streets will not be safe. There will be riots, and martial law will be invoked. Barter becomes commonplace. A piano for a sack of potatoes. Farmers become the most powerful group because they produce what we all need, food. People in cities suffer terribly compared to rural communities. Gangs from the city raid the farms, they steal the crops and the livestock. So we are all in this lifeboat together, trying to survive this inflation storm. So what is it that we must do? Firstly, there must be absolute parity between currency and the goods and services received. A loaf of bread costing $2 today must still cost $2 in a year's time. If this is not done, then all other measures will fail. Long-term stability must be obtained, and no one is permitted to rock the boat. People will try and use their money to get around these regulations. Black marketeers must be punished severely. Nobody in a lifeboat can take more than their share. Prices and wages must go hand in hand. All salaries and wages are frozen. Prices of all goods, services and rents are frozen. Government functions and powers must be decentralized to take up the advantages of local control, which are much more efficient and accountable. In this lifeboat survival strategy, there must be an extra tax on the wealthy, based on the net worth of all their assets. The wealth of the rich is made on the backs of the poor, yet the rich pay very little tax. It is time to tax their net worth, the value of all their assets, properties, investments, yachts, jewelry, and so on. The money they used to buy that stuff came from the workers. It is time to get some back. Now, it is in fact the young people that drive the economy. A young couple starting out in life needs a car, accommodation, baby clothes, insurance, policies, and a huge amount of other stuff. It is best to have them out of work, buying stuff, and paying taxes. Having them stay with their parents until they're in their mid-30s is not a good thing, because all they are doing is paying off their student loans. This makes no economic sense and creates social problems. So we must have a system where university fees are frozen and online fees are decreased. These people that drive the economy, they need a ladder up, not a snake down. If we are to survive this inflationary storm, then there are two things that we must do immediately. First, we must stop printing worthless currency, and we must stimulate economic growth so we have full employment and more taxes are paid. And we do this by reducing interest rates. Please share this video with your federal and provincial members of Parliament and with as many of your contacts as possible. Thank you.